Welcome to the Internet Hall of Fame 2013 award ceremony. Well, as you have seen it outside, it's pretty warm, even unusual for Germany, but thanks to the air condition, so it's going to be an enjoyable temperature and an exciting evening. My name is Amius, by the way, and I'm very honored to be part of this historic gathering of Internet leaders and innovators. Last year, the Internet Society founded the Internet Hall of Fame as an annual recognition program that honors pioneers, leaders, and luminaries who have made significant contributions to the advancement and expansion of the global Internet. Well, to share her thoughts on this program and on the extraordinary group of individuals that we will recognize today, I would like to introduce Lynn Amour, President and CEO of the Internet Society.
Thank you. It's an honor to be able to join you all here today for this wonderful occasion, and I must admit at the same time, quite intimidating. So, recognized for their groundbreaking contributions to the global Internet, this year's inductees comprise a diverse group of some of the world's most influential engineers, innovators, activists, and entrepreneurs. Since our initial launch last year, the Internet Hall of Fame is going from strength to strength. Many of the inductees are known worldwide. Others have played an important, yet perhaps a more behind-the-scenes role. Together, though, they have given the Internet its global reach, contributed to and upheld its ideals, worked hard to preserve its openness, and helped to make it accessible to people around the world. The Internet wouldn't be what it is without your efforts. And on behalf of the Internet Society Board of Trustees and the Internet Society, we're extremely pleased to be able to facilitate such an appropriate recognition. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Affilius, who has been a partner with the Internet Society for a very, very long time, and we are always very thankful and grateful for your support. So with that, I would like to introduce Bob Hinden. The Internet Society Board of Trustees is meeting here in Berlin today and tomorrow, and this is our annual AGM, and we elected a new chair. We elected a chair for the year, happens to be a new incoming chair, and that's Bob Hinden. Bob?
Thank you very much. I'm very proud to be here at the Hall of Fame. I'm very happy to be here to see the new inductees and recognize their important contributions. As the internet continues to evolve and grow, I think it's also very exciting to think that we'll see innovations coming from people who are not yet connected to the internet. So it's the internet will continue to expand and evolve, and the Internet Hall of Fame will recognize these people as they become instrumental in building the internet for future generations. So on behalf of the Internet Society Board of Trustees, we're very proud to support the program that celebrates the history of the internet and the people who had an important role in making the internet a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. So before we get on to the ceremony, I'd actually like to recognize the Internet Hall of Fame Advisory Board for their efforts in selecting this year's inductees. The Advisory Board is an international committee. It spans many internet industry segments and backgrounds that come from across the global internet community in order to select the inductees, as our goal is to have these awards be for the community and from the community, which is no small task. The full list of advisory board members is up on the screen, and we are pleased to have two members actually joining us here in present today, and that's Raul Echeverria, who's also on the Internet Society Board, and Andrea Vieux. So please join me in thanking Raul, Under, and all the advisory board members for all their commitment and participation. We're also very honored to have several of our 2012 Hall of Fame inductees here. Elizabeth Feinler is there in the second row, perhaps better known as Jake Feinler, who also this year, earlier this week at the Internet Engineering Task Force meeting, received the Jonathan B. Postel Service Award and gave a very, very touching, moving speech at the IETF. Randy Bush is also here. There in the doorway. Toru Takahashi, and of course, Vince Cerf. Vince, not only a father of the internet, he's also founder of the Internet Society and served as its first president, and he's actually going to take a few moments and share some thoughts with us today. So Vince?
This is quite dangerous because a former Stanford professor with an open microphone, and you're trapped in this room. So how much time do I have? First of all, let me say that this is a very important function to perform. The most important thing about the internet is that it is a gigantic collaboration. We all know that. Every person sitting in this room, anyone who's ever looked at a chart of the internet to see how it's interconnected, to see how many hundreds of thousands of organizations voluntarily follow a set of standards and connect together, making bilateral decisions. No one forces any of this top down. This is all done bottom up. And so when the Internet Society was first formed, it was my thought and belief that a society would literally arise out of the internet. And although I think we're seeing that, we may be seeing multiple societies, we may be seeing many different faces of societies, not just one. But the thing that binds us all together is this ability to share our thoughts, to share our ideas, and to freely get access to the internet's resources. This is something that the Internet Society has struggled to preserve and will continue to do so, as will many of us with many other hats on. But tonight it's a special occasion to recognize those many people who have worked to make this system what it is now. There's going to be a lot of work for the Internet Hall of Fame because as time goes on, more and more people will deserve recognition, and we will all have to seek to make sure they get it. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much. So, now for the awards. I think you're all ready for this part. We will announce our 2013 inductees, and when your name is announced, we will ask you to come up to the stage and, of course, make a few brief remarks. We have a sample of the award on the table, which is outside. I've seen it already when you entered to this room. You have seen it already. So it's quite large, and so we will ship your award to your home in the next several weeks. So make sure you will get it. Today, when you come up to the stage, Lynn will hand you a leather portfolio. They're over there, and certificate as a keepsake from this event. I think these are the very important informations, and we, ladies and gentlemen, can start with the first category, which is the Innovators category. Recognizing individuals who made outstanding technological, commercial, or policy advances and helped to expand the Internet's reach. Co-authored the first widely used browser, Mosaic, and co-founded Netscape. Well, he is not today with us, but except on his behalf, your applause for Mark Andreessen. But the next person is present. So, co-founded the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Please welcome to the stage John Perry Barlow.
Humbled by this, but I usually reserve that for when my car's been towed. I'm very deeply honored, surprised, and gratified. I am a member of another Hall of Fame, which is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and let me tell you, there is a lot more narcissism involved. And one of the things I really love about this is that I'm looking at people whose ideas were the important thing, and who knew that, and who knew the elegant solution when they saw it, and caused it to be born. And I'm grateful to all of you because, you know, I care a lot about the architecture of the internet. You can't endow liberty in the absence of the ability to take it away. And so it has to be part of the architecture. And each and every one of you has been an enormous part of creating a system that is difficult to shut up. And I am very profoundly grateful to you for all of that. And finally, I want to accept this also on the behalf of some people that I hope are one day members of the Internet Hall of Fame. And they are Edward Snowden, Bradley Manning, and Julian Assange. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Pierre Ballo. So, innovator in implementing DNS security extensions technology and usage procedures. Please welcome to the stage Annemarie Eklund-Lewinder.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very great honor, and I'm proud, honored, but not so little surprised to be here. But still, even though I'm not a troublemaker, I maybe will not be an evangelist, but I'm a really, really stubborn lady. And I've been working with the NSX since 1999 when I started my first project in that area. And we signed the Swedish top-level domain 2005, being the first one. And then I pushed the others in front of me, trying hard to get them to follow us. And today I would say that DNSSEC is operational. It's day-to-day business. And I'm very glad to see that happen because you know what? DNS is a wonderful piece of engineering art, and we need to protect it as good as we can. So thank you very much for having me here. And working with I am doing every day is a reward in itself. Getting awarded for it is even better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annemarie Eklund-Lewinder. So, let's continue. Convened meeting that led to Réseau IP Européens, RIPE, contributed to creation of the Pan-European Internet backbone. Please welcome to the stage François Flukiger.
Good evening, everyone. I come from CERN, the place where we discovered the Higgs boson, you know, the God particle that fills the entire vacuum between matter particles and which give their mass to those who deserve it. CERN is a place where we try and understand where the universe comes from. And to do that, we need technology. This is why we developed the web. But we also need a network infrastructure. And this is why we contributed to the creation of the European Internet. This is why I am here tonight. This is with huge pride, but also with great humility, because it was a collective undertaking. Kees, Werner, Teus, myself, through us, this award also goes to all those in Europe who help creating the internet. Just to name a few: Peter Losberg, Bernard Stockmann, Frode Geisen, Peter Willemoes, Dennis Jennings, Olivier Martin, and so many others. But back to the web. Many of you probably know that in '93, CERN put the web software in the public domain in '93. In '94, when Tim Berners-Lee left CERN to the MIT, I took over him. My first job was to release the next version of the web, the version 3, the famous version 3. But we had learned, we listened, we heard what you, Richard, were telling us. And I released version 3 as free software. This was the first time. But look, there had been a year of vacuum, a property vacuum for the web software, where anyone could have taken the web and denied others to use it freely. But this did not happen. Why? Why this did not happen? Maybe because just the vacuum is not empty. It is full of Higgs bosons.
Thank you very much to François Flückiger. Very entertaining. So, let's bring our next award winner to the stage. Leader in the architecture of network security systems, please welcome Stephen Kent.
Well, it occurred to me belatedly that I really should just tweet my acceptance speech. Except I don't have a Twitter account, so that makes it harder. I'm honored to be among so many others who are in the first and now in this second group of people to be inducted into this Hall of Fame because of the significant contributions that they have made, and it makes me feel good to be in that kind of category. I'm especially proud to see Vint in the second row. I've known Vint since about 1977. He's been a role model for me, not only in the technical domain, but as a wine and food lover as well. Finally, of course, I want to thank the directors, the screenwriters, the key grip, the get. Whoops, wrong acceptance speech. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Let's continue. Co-developed protocols used by almost all internet, telephony, and multimedia applications. Please welcome to the stage Henning Schulz-Rinne.
I'm honored and proud to accept the award on behalf of all the people who have made real-time communication over the internet possible, who've made it possible that we can now seriously think about replacing a legacy 100-year-old telephone network by a more modern version of that, namely an internet-based version. Probably the last vestige of the old communication infrastructure that we still had to tackle, and I'm glad many of us were able to do that together. As part of the evolution of this technology, I've been kind of pleased, or in some cases not so much, to be part of 6 phases of the technology. I know some of you know kind of the Gardner type of phases with hype and disillusionment and all that. I don't think that quite worked in that case. First phase was, why bother? We have a perfectly fine telephone network. Why do you bother with doing this over IP? It can barely sound good, let alone do all the features he had. Fortunately, Vint, in the first phase, was able to provide encouragement when he was still at MCI to say, maybe worth pursuing. The second phase is nobody cared. That's a really good thing, because you can actually do engineering work without having grand ambitions or having lots of people, say at other standards organizations, suddenly get interested. They didn't know what was hitting them. Then there's the usual hype phase and implementation phase and all that. Then comes, unfortunately, the patent lawyer phase. I could, if I wanted to, and I suspect some of my friends have used that to their advantage, even if they had never filed a patent themselves as witnesses on the other side. And then, unfortunately, we also get to the phase where your kids no longer think this is cool technology. Voice? Who would use that, says my daughter. And unfortunately now, we're in one of the other phases, which I find myself in, namely the cleanup phase. what was not in reappreciation, that I'm probably also, at least to some small extent, responsible for just about every robocall that you have ever received. And I'm now in the process, at least I hope, to help clean up some of that mess. With that, thank you so much, much appreciated.
Thank you very much to Henning Schulz-Rinne. Very shortly, but enormous. Founded the Free Software Foundation. Please welcome to the stage Richard Stallman.
So, 30 years ago, if you wanted to get a new computer and use it, you had to surrender your freedom by installing a user-subjugating proprietary operating system. So I decided to fix that by developing another operating system and make it free. And it's called GNU, but most of the time you'll hear people erroneously calling it Linux. Please give us equal mention. Linux is the name of one component, the kernel of this system. If you call it GNU plus Linux, you'll give the principal developers equal mention. However, of course, we also, with our computers nowadays, talk to the internet, which is another way that our freedom can be taken away. The internet was originally designed with the idea that your computer could talk with my computer if we wanted to do something together, the end-to-end principle. But this has been trashed by a bunch of companies like ISPs that don't allow the subscribers to receive connections, computers designed to be so weak that the only thing you can do with them is use them as front end for centralized services, and of course the companies that set up these centralized services to try to surveil people as much as possible and hand over all the information they collect to the NSA, which turns the whole thing into something monstrous. So if we want the internet to be something good for human freedom, instead of the final curtain call for human freedom, we need to fight hard. And above all, we've got to beware of anyone proposing smart this or that that's going to talk to the internet or the Internet of Things. Their idea, I guess, is that every appliance in your house would be yet another surveillance opportunity for the NSA and also, if it's running non-free software, another way for companies to control you and probably have bad security so that they can that lots of others can mistreat you. I won't let any of the things in my domicile be part of the Internet of Things unless it's running free software and set up by people I know I can trust not to turn it into a tentacle of surveillance. And one of the things we need to prevent this is proper laws. That is, not the laws businesses want. For instance, if we switch from using landline telephones to voice over IP, for that to be a step forward rather than a step back, we've got to make sure that common carrier laws that apply to landline telephones, except where they've succeeded companies have succeeded in purchasing the abolition of these good regulations. We got to make sure it's the same for any replacement system that we might use, which translates basically into network neutrality. We've got to have the totally clear and firm network neutrality, just as firm as for telephone lines. So if you agree with any of this stuff, you might want to join the Free Software Foundation at fsf.org.
Thank you very much, Richard Stallman. We are still in the Innovators category, and coming up now, co-authored RSS version 1.0, co-owner of Reddit, and early architect of Creative Commons. So this will be awarded posthumous. His father, Robert Swartz, is accepting the award. And the award goes to Aaron Swartz.
say that I'm humbled and honored to be here tonight. And my only wish is that Aaron would be here to accept this award. Aaron fought tirelessly to make information free and keep the internet free, and to make academic research available for free, among other things. He was pursued by bad laws, vindictive prosecution, and uncaring institutions. And I hope that we can all move forward to try to change those things so that the tragedy that occurred to Aaron doesn't occur to anyone else. Thank you.
A very emotional moment. Let's try to continue. So, fueled the online user collaboration and sharing trend as founder of Wikipedia, award winner Jimmy Wales. But of course he tonight cannot be with us, so Jimmy could not join us today and send his regrets. His full acceptance speech, as well as those of several others who couldn't attend, will be posted on the Internet Hall of Fame website. Jimmy wanted to express that he did not feel he could accept this honor in his name alone, and wanted to call out the incredible community of Wikipedians who are the heart and soul of the project. He said that the original vision statement for Wikipedia is for all of us to imagine a world in which every single person on the planet is given free access to the sum of all human knowledge. Jimmy knows that there are now more than 500 million people per month reading Wikipedia across more than 200 languages. This is quite an amazing accomplishment, and we congratulate Jimmy Wales. So, that was the first category, and we coming up now to the second category. That's the global connectors. Recognizing individuals from around the world who have made significant contributions to the global growth and use of the internet. Networking leader who used ICTs and applications as tools for social change. Unfortunately, she couldn't share this beautiful evening with us, but of course we honor her tonight. The award goes to Karen Banks. Our next award winner, instrumental in establishing the academic internet in Sri Lanka. Please welcome on the stage is Gihan Diaz.
Thank you. I'm really grateful for this honor, but really it is not just me. There were many people behind this. So let me talk about the story. It started in the mid-1980s when I and many other people were graduate students in the US. And we found this great technology called email, which allowed us to talk to each other. But we didn't have that back in Sri Lanka. So we set up a network to connect all the people, not just in the US, but all over the world, and called it SLNet, Sri Lanka Network. And that was really one of the first social networks. There were others, but one of the first, which was set up globally, long before the word social network was ever coined. And then we found, okay, we needed funding. We set up a non-profit organization called Lanka Academic Network to fund this initiative. And so I think this is how it all started. Then in 1992, when I was back in Sri Lanka, we said, okay, let's start this internet here in Sri Lanka. And we set it up, and again the funding came from this same community. We just got $300 from the government, but that's okay, we did it anyway. And as things continued, we set up the network, we connected everybody, again, it was many people all around the country as well as other countries. And especially I'm grateful for the funding we got from international organizations such as the Swedish government for making that happen. Then in 2002, I took up another challenge. That is, how do we make these computers available for people who do not speak English? So in our country we have two languages, Sinhala and Tamil, which are written in different scripts, not the Latin script we use for English. So how do we get all these computers, phones, tablets, all the devices to use those languages? It was a difficult task because these were quite small languages. Only several million people used that. And the vendors were not interested in small languages. But however, we persevered, and we had first Windows, then Linux, GNU Linux, and then various other platforms also supporting this. And now we need content. So we went around and said, okay, how do we do the content? And that's really what kept me busy for the last maybe 20 or 25 years. But right now, we have more challenges. We need to make this internet accessible to everyone at an affordable price. We need to ensure cyber safety, that we are not endangered by being on the net, and privacy, that we do not give up our rights just to access the internet. So I think there's a lot more work to be done. Let me conclude by saying that I thank the Internet Society for this, but it is not really for me. It is for all the people who helped the entire community to achieve what we have done. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Gian Diaz. She helped establish email and internet connectivity in Southern Africa. She apologized that she cannot be here today. So your applause to Henriette Esterhuizen. He got a connection of approximately 25 countries in Europe, Latin America and East Asia to NSFNet. Please welcome to the stage Stephen Goldstein.
Thanks. As I was coming over toward Brussels in the airplane, happened to look down the window, and there was the Straits of Dover, and the melody just came to my mind. You know, I'm flying over the white cliffs of Dover, World War II melody. And it reminded me that I am not of this internet generation. I was of a previous internet generation, and in my internet generation, countries were just developing 64 kilobit per second networks and were looking to connect to what was then the center of gravity of the internet, which was the NSFNet, and I was working at NSF. And I took it upon myself as my mission to help them connect to us. And in doing that, I met with a good deal of resistance, some within my own agency, and some from sister agencies of the US government who didn't want NSF to get out in front of them. So a lot of my activity really was what you would politely call advocacy, and it was dealing with this resistance. But we managed with the Internet Connections Manager Award to one by one connect countries at roughly 64 kilobits per second to the NSFNet. And then by the mid-90s, when the NSFNet was decommissioned, but we had faster network development networks, we followed Al Gore's initiative to have a connection point for 45 megabit per second networks, which at that point were considered to be broadband. And then toward just beyond 2000, a global ring for a dedicated wavelength around the world for computationally intensive research that involved the founding countries. You wouldn't believe this if you didn't know about it. Russia, China, and the United States together. And Gloriad still exists. So in all of that, as I said, some of it was a bit of a rough slog, but it was very rewarding. And I wish I could thank all the people in all the countries who were our partners. And in the in the United States, my awardees and other people who worked very hard with me to make this happen. This certainly wasn't mine alone. But two people that I want to recognize. One was a fellow awardee today, my boss, Steve Wolf, because Steve pretended to look the other way and let me do my thing, as long as I pretended to stay out of trouble. And that wasn't easy. And the guy that kept me out of trouble was my very good colleague, Don Mitchell. Don knew more about the rules and regulations of the U.S. government and the National Science Foundation than almost anybody else. So he helped me steer around the rough parts, and he, with me, helped to bend the rules but not break them. And without his help and without the cooperation of partners all over the world, really, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did. So that's the story in a capsule. And I certainly thank the Internet Society and the advisory group who were kind enough to choose me for this honor. And in the name of all the people that worked with me to make all these things happen, I thank you, and I am deeply honored.
Thank you very much. Stephen Goldstein. Initiated European Unix user group and started EUNet. Please welcome to the stage Tus Hagen.
At the time we started, the GNU Linux system was not there. So we used Unix systems to connect them to each other and trying to connect them via dial-up lines. Later on, the ARPA and TCP/IP stack existed. But the whole thing was possible, what I learned later on, by the blueprint for making the innovations okay. And that book is written in 1962. It's written by Everett Rogers, who should thank Gabriel Tarde, who had those ideas. And the book is called Diffusion of Innovation. And I urge you to read that book, or if you have your Google device with you, look it up and look up the diffusion of innovation for healthcare. For that's not 500 pages, and that's only 3 pages, and it gives you 10 rules to obey to make things happening and to disseminate those things. And what you need for that, and I will do that in a little bit, is simplicity. Think about that, and think about simplicity and the complexity which we get on now. And what you also need to do is triability and compatibility and relative advantage. And what you above all need is what I call daredevils. And those daredevils made the whole internet going on. And I think I was just in charge, I was just directing things. But all those people with me and all those people with you, we have to thank them all for doing this. And thank you for the openness and freedom. Keep maintaining that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tus Hagen. So, our next Global Connectors Award winner, instrumental in development of first networks that underpinned the internet in Latin America. Please welcome Ida Holz.
Thank you very much. I am very honored to receive this recognition. However, I am not sure if I deserve it. I think there are so many people that have contributed to the growth and expansion of internet that it is very, very difficult to choose who the service. For developing country like ours, Internet is a means of collaborate and access knowledge all around the world alike. And this will accelerate the progress of our countries. In Latin America and in Caribbean, in 1991, and I remember very well Stephen, who helped us so much, we started to recognize and to organize ourselves to build up regional agreement for the development of Internet. At the onset, we had a forum of academic networks. Later, we founded LACNIC, LACTLD, and also ISOC in Latin America. With the help of the European Commission in 2003, we began to build the Latin America Advanced Network Academic, CLARA, which is connected to Europe Advanced Network, JAM, and to Internet. All these organizations have enabled our countries to work collaboratively so as to foster the development in Latin America and have allowed us to reach the development of international knowledge together. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Ida Holtz. Led the NCFC project team to bring the internet to mainland China. Please welcome to the stage Shihan Hu.
This honor for me is too high. At this exciting moment, my sincere gratitude, first of all, goes to the initiators and creators of the great internet, which has changed and is changing the world, including my country. Secondly, I would pay my high respect and gratitude to ISOC as the primary nurturer and leader of the global internet community, and many individuals of this community who have devoted their support to promote the internet development in China. And thirdly, I would like to thank also my Chinese colleagues, join their efforts in the early years to lay the road for the internet entering China. I think the honor of Internet Hall of Fame, precious gift and encouragement to the internet, Chinese internet community, the users, the companies providing services, and the many researchers in the technology and application innovators. They are trying their best to blaze the new trails, contributing to the global internet evolution. And also many young self-starters who are fighting their way out with the internet and promising the future prosperous. After 20 years having the internet in Chinese people's life, when we look back now, what we find is a big change in the society and in people themselves. The internet has dramatically accelerated the stepping forward course of my country. I believe the better future is related with the global multi-stakeholders. Of them, the Chinese internet community is a vibrant part. Being able to join my tiny efforts to the historical stream of mankind to bring the great internet to life in my country, that is my lifetime honor and the happiest thing that is permanently deep in my heart. Thank you.
Global Connectors Award to Shihan Hu. awarded posthumous. Leader in introducing Unix computing and internet working to Japan. His wife, Junko Ishida, is accepting the award, and the award goes to Haruisa Ishida.
Hello everybody. I am very happy to be here today, and I am very honored to be here today. And I would like to extend my husband's gratitude to you. Well, Haruhisa met computer science when he was 23 in his master's course. And since then it's been nearly 50 years. And all through that time, I'm sure he was fascinated in this field of study and happily worked and was very, well, he was happy working with the people of computer science and working for internet or computer. And this is all what I can say. I know nothing about computer science. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Posthumous for Haruhisa Ishida, taken by his wife, Junko Ashida. One more award, posthumous. Envisioned and helped establish Internet Activities Board, which led the effort to set Internet technical standards. We're happy that his brother, Dave Liner, is present and will accepting the award for Barry Liner.
Well, along with Barry's wife Ellen and his children Jason and Deirdre, I'm just, and the rest of the family, of course, I'm just thrilled to be here on behalf of my brother. We also want to thank the Internet Society for allowing us to participate in this just wonderful event. Well, the family knew of Barry's involvement with the Internet, but he was always so matter-of-fact about it that we knew very little about the extent of his roles and contributions. Jason told me before I left that he remembers Barry telling him, just make society a better place. that was Barry. We now realize how profound a role he played in doing just that. Barry had a remarkable ability to bring together diverse people, organizations to help make decisions and the plans that became the Internet as we know it today. From what I've seen over the past couple of days, the people in this room are very passionate and have no shortage of opinions about how to do that. So it must have been quite a challenge. Well, it seems quite fitting and even ironic that his family should accept this award for him, since he much preferred accomplishment to any personal recognition. So with that in mind, I'm very, very pleased to accept this honor for my brother Barry.
Posthumous Global Connectors, so Barry Liner. Well, he aided in deployment of information technology to more than 50 developing countries. Please welcome to the stage George Sadowski.
So I'd like to tell you a story. In 1981, in particular in the spring of 1981, I found myself in Kigali, Rwanda. The background was that in 1973 I'd signed on to the UN as a technical advisor in computer methods, just as the African Census Program was starting, and we were installing new computers in almost every country in sub-Saharan Africa, with the exception of South Africa. I was there because the agent that we had sent over to install a Honeywell mini computer, which only required 10 kVA of uninterruptible power supply to work, couldn't get the computer to work, so I was sent. And after a few days, we took care of most of the simple problems, but we still couldn't get the computer to accept the operating system tape. So clearly, what do? Well, you go back to the manufacturer, or you go back to a colleague and ask. At that point, Rwanda had radio telephone service in a 2-hour window out of every 24, and it reached New York, the East Coast, at between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. You could get a plane and fly out. The turnaround would be certain, but the turnaround time was pretty long. Or you could go through the UN telex operator, the first actual email. The telex operator had a censor, that's spelled C-E-N-S-O-R, whose job it was apparently to strike out every other word, or certainly to remove enough words so that the content was thoroughly ambiguous. And he had a colleague on the other side, so the reply got the same treatment. So to make a long story short, after 2 weeks, we were nowhere. And it drove home to me the concept of information poverty in a way that no other experience had. There's lots of evidence of information poverty. When we visited university libraries in most sub-Saharan countries, we found that the library had approximately 100 books, and they were 20 years out of date. So that it was really a very sad situation, and I thought to myself, well, if I, with the knowledge of how to get information, fail totally, utterly, miserably in this, what chance do the people who live in these countries have? They don't. And so the information poverty simply perpetuates itself because they're unable to identify well and solve their problems. Now, that's not the only thing you need to solve problems, but it's really, really important. So when I left the UN and went back to university, academia computing, and met the people who eventually founded the Internet Society, I thought, here's something we can do en masse to create waves of people who understand this, who come from these countries, who can go back and install, connect their countries to the internet, install routed networks, do resource discovery and content serving eventually on the net. It was a crying need. It was a volunteer effort. Some of the people in this room contributed to it. Randy Bush contributed mightily to the start of it to help make it a success. Steve Goldstein and Ida Holtz were at the first workshop. Gihan Diaz was at the second. We decided that we would take the time to create courses that would allow people to do these things, and we would fund them to the maximum extent we could, which was almost 100% in most years. We had a willing ally in Larry Landweber, who was then vice president, Vint, who was president, and so we started with 135 people at Stanford University. Over the course of 8 years, we trained about 1,500 people from almost all developing countries, and we started a series in Central and Eastern Europe, which has really outlived ours and still continues to be an active networking association. From that workshop came WALC for Latin America, and which trained, I suspect, many more people in the thousands. I'm very proud of this accomplishment. I think that the many volunteers who gave up their vacations and much of their time to run these workshops for the Internet Society were really, really in the forefront of pushing the internet out so that truly the internet can be for everyone. And I'm also very pleased that one of the results of this was that the Internet Society itself turned its face to the problems of development, to the problems of training and helping people, and that trend continues to this day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George Sadowski. So we are running now into the third and the last category for tonight. It's the Pioneers Circle. Recognizing individuals who were instrumental in the early design and development of the internet. Significant contributions to early internet protocols and architecture. So this award goes to David Clark. Our next award winner could not be with us, but there is a video acceptance speech which we would like to show you right now on the screen.
Hello. I'm very sorry that I have to join you by video. I wish I could be there in person to say how delighted I am to receive this award. When I started working on the internet in the mid-1970s, we certainly did not imagine the future would look the way it does. It's been a wonderful adventure with many wonderful friends and collaborators that have made it happen. As we single out a few of us, it's important to remember just how much of a team effort this has been. And of course, the adventure's not over. If I can use this moment to make just one point, the future of the internet today is not defined by technologists. It is defined by the rich interplay between technology and the larger context of economic investment, regulatory theory, social, cultural, and political concerns. It's a challenge for the technical community to understand these larger factors, but they are the ones that are now driving the future, and that's where we must go if we hope to have a role shaping the future. I still believe the future of the internet can be shaped by smart people, and that's the challenge we should accept. Again, thanks very much, and I hope you're having a wonderful event.
David Clark. Well, our next award winner has the same first name. Instrumental in early internet development, created the first operational distributed computer system. Please welcome to the stage David Farber.
I guess I'm supposed to say how historic things happen, but what I'd like to do is actually paraphrase a comment that is fairly traditional in mathematics and was first taught to me by Dick Hamming, that I have done good things, I paraphrase it, because I've stood on the shoulders of great people that preceded me. I started in this business by knowing one of the great people who contributed to the internet, Paul Barron, who became a close and valued friend and teacher of how to think, how to get things done, and how to be honest. I spent most of my career in the academic world, and as many, many teachers, a lot of your work depends on your students. They're the ones who drive you, they're the ones who keep you young, they're the ones who inspire you, and I have had some great students, like John Postel, Dave Sinkowski, a whole bunch of excellent students that really drove me on, because they would come in and they'd say, I want to do this, and you think, they can't make that work, and they go and do it. I look forward to more students and more exciting future. I think the internet has just started. I don't think we're anywhere near it being developed the way it will be in the future. We're going to get faster networks, we're going to get faster computers, and we're going to get secure environments. And there's no way we can avoid it unless government puts its foot down the wrong place. So I thank you very much for the honor, and look forward to the future. Thank you.
David Farber. Pioneers Circle next award winner. He co-wrote proposal that won contract to design network structure for ARPANET. Your applause for Howard Frank. So Howard cannot be with us today, but sent a statement gratefully accepting this honor. He said that when he first encountered packet switching technology, he thought it was interesting, but only after his first company, the Network Analysis Corporation, was contracted by ARPA to develop topological designs for the ARPANET, did he then begin to realize the potential of the technology. After the contact was expanded to investigate the economics of packet switching for large nationwide networks, he became a true believer. Howard said, it is a great pleasure to see what has taken place over the last 20 years. So once again, congratulations, Howard Frank. Influential in bringing the internet to Thailand, please welcome to the stage, it's Kanchana Sood.
Thank you. I
I was very surprised to receive this recognition. However, once I received the news, I became so happy, not just for myself, but for all my Thai colleagues who, work together with me in bringing the internet to Thailand. It's just not just me. And I think our experiences may be very similar to Gehan Dice and to the South American case, and so I would not repeat that. Instead, I would like to briefly talk to you about what I had to go through as playing this pioneering role in a developing country. The most difficult thing was in order to get involved in this type of activity, we need to get finance, we need to get funding. And for us, it was very difficult because our government would not understand what we wanted to do. The telcos would not let us touch their equipment. So that was our first task. And once you overcome that, we had to start finding people, students, and we had to try to train our engineers. And for this, I received a lot of help from my friends in SRC and APNIC. And I really want to thank them here as well. And apart from that, after training all these people, all the engineers, and getting ready for the network expansion, we had to come across a lot of problems with policymakers and government. In order to, we need to always try to strike for a balance, whether multi-stakeholder model is going too far or the other way around. So we are a kind of people in the middle that try to balance these two powers. And this recognition may help me and my team to do a better job in this role. Thank you.
Pioneer Circle Award winner Kanchana Sood. Once again awarded posthumous, championed the vision of a worldwide computer network. So his son Tracy is accepting the award. The award goes to JCR Licklider.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here on behalf of my dad to accept this honor. He would be very happy that there was an internet society, someone shepherding, although that's probably too strong a word, the evolution of the internet, which is probably more unmanageable or predictable than shepherding cats. And I think he would be bemused that there was an Internet Hall of Fame. I'm pretty sure he didn't think of that in his pioneering thoughts. Also, he would say to you that you were all wrong and that he never should have been chosen to receive this award. He was a fairly humble guy and would sit here, and it's been a recurring theme. He would begin naming the names of all the people who really did the work. And he would sort of just say, I was there. And he would list a lot of people. When he was alive, I've been to some award ceremonies in which he received an award. And it was kind of boring because he sort of disappointed the audience and just listed lots of people. And it's perhaps because his time in government taught him something that he didn't, I don't think, start out knowing, being an engineer scientist. But he kind of got the idea about being politically and socially correct and congratulating everybody else but himself. My dad was, I guess you would say, an out-of-the-box thinker. In fact, there are some people who thought he never was in the box. I think a lot of what he did was serendipitous. He went to both Beranek and Newman after starting the experimental psychology program at MIT as a person who was known for his experimental psychological work in hearing, audition, and hearing, and human factors. And he worked on things like what kinds of signals. His office at BBN had gongs, noisemakers, all kinds of things that would make sounds in the spirit of figuring out what's good to tell a pilot that the plane's on fire. Something that would penetrate and be successful in letting people know what was going on. In the process, and this is a time when BBN was an acoustics company. They designed Royal Philharmonic Hall and the New York facility, and he was lucky to be there when they first got computers. And this utterly transformed him from being a psychologist. He became infatuated. At that time, you were fundamentally working with a personal computer because it was unshareable. And I remember as a kid going in there, particularly on Saturdays. I had a job of rolling up the punched paper tape, putting a rubber band on it, and putting it back on the pegboard. I was paid 5 cents a day, and it was nice that the BBN vending machine dispensed candy bars for exactly 1 nickel. But he really was transformed by this experience of being one-on-one with a computer and had the idea of the potential of human augmentation by having a symbiotic relationship with a computer. And that evolved to a very strong belief in what he would call the intergalactic network, which would take the knowledge of humankind and make it freely and openly accessible to everyone in the world. A somewhat idealistic and optimistic position, perhaps, but one that gained tremendous momentum. And again, as luck would have it, for some reason, somebody thought he should come to the Information Processing Techniques office at ARPA. And this was giving money to an out-of-the-box person who became not only a proselytizer for this vision, but a guy who happened to have cash. And he was somewhat of a talent spotter, and he would find some smart, group in a university and say, oh, sorry, excuse me, sorry. I get carried away here. But he had money to give people, all kinds of strange people, all kinds of people who seemed to share his vision. And I think that's where, that was the luck of it all. They could have appointed somebody else to IPTO and not had the same result. Maybe a better one, maybe a different one, but it's hard to see that. But because he was in this funding, he was an evangelist, he was a funder, he would stand up here and say, no, I didn't do it. All these people that were brilliant and did it, and let me tell you all their names. And then you'd get bored. But he was very happy about how the internet evolved to a point, but he didn't live long enough to see the World Wide Web and to see the dark forces of venture capital and the entertainment industry attempts, all kinds of actors becoming dominant players in the evolution of the internet, more so at the time anyway in this period than technology in some cases. I think at this point he would be concerned about the attacks on the fundamental notion of taking humankind's knowledge and making it available to everyone. And he would be disturbed by nation-state interdiction of their internet. He would be dismayed by government surveillance, and the partitioning, the commercialization and partitioning that impeded this free flow. And I guess it's up to the succeeding generation of people, the Internet Society and its followers, to make sure that we have a good outcome. But in any case, enough said. I really appreciate it very much that, that you bestowed this award on him, and thank you very much.
The award for JCR Licklider. Our next award winner, he led the invention, standardization, and commercialization of the Ethernet. It's Bob Metcalf. So unfortunately, Bob could not be with us today, but sent his thanks and felt he had much good fortune along the way. He said he was lucky to be swept up by the internet movement in 1970 at the MIT and Harvard, and got to build an ARPANET IMP interface and wrote early packet protocol software working with many internet visionaries. He said he was even luckier to be the first person in history to be given the problem of how to network a building full of people, full of personal computers. At Park, they came up with the Ethernet building on the ARPANET packet switching and a LoANET multi-access. They extended the internet into buildings, going past their time-sharing mini-computers right to desktop PCs. Bob reminds us, build it and there will come new, unanticipated applications of bandwidth, bringing the world ever more freedom and prosperity. Congratulations, Bob Metcalf. So, let's continue. Developed the first inter-university network in Japan and considered father of the internet in Japan. Please welcome Jun Murai.
Yeah, like many people in this room, my background is from a Unix operating system. During the student's time, I've been working with a Unix operating system, probably one of the first approaches in a Japanese university and the computer scientists. I was reading all the source code of the Unix operating system, which was written in a language called C, and I found out the name char in there. And what does char means? And I immediately visiting the Bell Labs and meet with Dennis Ritchie. And why do you call this char? And then he said that because it's for the character. And which character do you mean? And our version of the character needs a 16 bits instead of 8-bit. And that's what we started the discussion. And then computer science was very much US oriented. And then so we had a long debate. So the same things we did with Bill Joy when he did the VI, which is basically treating the parity bit tricky. So he thought that it was a 7-bit. I mean, character was a 7-bit, but we really need 16 bits for Japanese character sets. So then, I read the RFC 822. Then it said explicitly that email content has to be written in a ASCII character. Okay. Then so I thought the email would be exchanged only by English, but then it's really not. When I started the university network in Japan, oh, by the way, my name, Japan University Network, so easy to remember. And so when I started the network in Japan in the 80s, then I found out that I thought that computer scientists can read English and speak in English because they are reading all the papers and the manuals and etc. But actually, they couldn't. Therefore, it's really important to introduce the languages onto a computer environment, and as well as the internet space and the messages. So my first lecture I remember in the IETF was about that and how we did, kind of local language accommodation on the email space. So the global space of the internet has been established by the many people's efforts, but it's also important to respect the culture and of each of the regions. So that's one of the things I was thinking. So I really appreciate all of the work, and especially the World Wide Web space, and the respecting those languages and the cultures on the internet space. So that's a good thing. And the second thing is, being academic and staying in a university. That was a very important thing. Getting back to the Berkeley standard, software distribution things has been done at the Berkeley, and then the first source code of a TCP/IP was distributed around the world from the Berkeley University. So that was very much impressed me, and as working with them. Therefore, then after when we have decided at the ITF for the IP next generation things, which is eventually being IP version 6, and then there was no computer science research group at Berkeley at that time, and then I was wondering who's going to be doing the reference code for IP version 6, and then we've been working very hard, and I was encouraging all my wide project engineers to write a reference code to them. So working with the INRIA people, Naval Research US, and then jointly created the KAME protocol stack on BSD for the IP version 6. I hope that was a very strong emotion that we have received from all the contribution from the UC Berkeley for the first TCP/IP source code around the world. So I really want to do the similar things from Japan. So that was role of the university is still going on, and then a lot of difficulties, new researches, new wisdom. We really need the internet, and the wisdom from the university and the academic network is going to be really very important basics for the future of the internet. And lastly, I'd like to mention about the ISOC. I remember the first ISOC, INET, was in Denmark, here in Europe, in 91, and I was there. And then we have discussed about we really need like a Kanchana's speech, and then a lot of difficulties on kind of newly creating the computer networks in the country. So we have difficulties in Japan. It's not very well understood by government, telephone companies, and etc. So we had a very hard time, and each of us having a hard time, and then. I remember I was talking to the Lariland River Day for Windsurf that we really need an umbrella to record all those experiences, and to be shared for the future to the entire world. And then I remember they came back, and here is the ISOC, Internet Society. So how do you like it? I remember especially that was on 91, and then I was proposing the first ISOC INET to be hosted by us in Japan, in Kobe. So that was first ISOC INET in Kobe in 92. So I think that was the start of the Internet Society activities all over the world. I'm proud of hosting the very first Internet Societies INET in Japan. And so, looking at the histories, then after that, ISOC has a tremendous amount of the work for the global internet deployment. And then so it's work is still going on, but I sincerely appreciate and respect the work of the Internet Society. So finally, I thank Professor Ishida who hired me to University of Tokyo, and them protecting me because I'm a very nasty person. And but without the Professor Ishida's protection of me and the encouragement, I couldn't make the job. And all the wide project engineers and the researchers who's been following me and working things done. Thank you very much.
Pioneer Circle Award winner, Jun Murai. Mr. Jun Murai, your portfolio. So, instrumental in the development of the internet in the Netherlands. Our next guest must come up to the stage. Please welcome Kees Neggers.
I would like to start by thanking the Internet Society for this great honor to be inducted in the Internet Hall of Fame. But like many others already said today, I would also like to thank all the others who supported me working in the development of the Internet. I'm very grateful to have the privilege to work with so many talented and nice people all over the world. And of course, there are too many to list here, and I will not start to do that. But I would like to mention two specifically here. One is Boudewijn Nederkoren, who was the co-founder and my co-managing director of SurfNet in the Netherlands, the National Research and Education Network that actually was the basis of all my internet activities. And the other one is my wife. As Finn said, global networking needs global collaboration and a lot of collaboration. And they both allowed me to travel anywhere, anytime when there was a need for that. And without their support, I'm sure I would not be able to stand here now. So that's for the thanks. And this is still a little bit time to reflect on the internet itself. It's, of course, obvious that the internet is a huge success, and it's impossible to imagine a world without it anymore. But at the same time, I think the current internet is not future-proof anymore. It's amazing how far we have come with the internet today. Is an architecture that was never designed to do the job it is asked today. And if we want to secure the internet for the future of mankind, that several people already said as well, I'm pretty sure that we have to look at a new architecture, a real new slate, and of course to do that in a way that is compatible with the existing one. I'm not a researcher, I'm not a computer scientist, but I'm pretty sure that we do have the know-how and we do have the technology to make that happen. Of course, you will face a lot of vested interest if you start to do that, but I think we need to assemble the courage and the partners around the globe to make that an effort and secure the internet for the future. Thank you.
Pioneer Circle winner Kees Neggers from the Netherlands. And now let's travel from the Netherlands to Africa. Pioneered internet development and expansion throughout Africa. Please welcome to the stage, it's Ni Kuainor.
Thank you very much. I'm just grateful and honored, to be part of this distinguished group. But I'd like to tell you a story. I could not get a visa to come here because the date they were giving for interview was like a month away. Satisfyingly, the government of Ghana decided to elevate me and make me a diplomat, so they gave me a diplomatic visa. So with that, I thank the Ghanaian delegation, ISA is here, and also my AAU friends are here from Afrin, and I thank them very much for this level of support. I know this honor is not for me alone, but also for the billions who still do not have the benefit of the internet. But I accept it and thank everyone on their behalf as well. enabling people from the developing countries to have a chance to benefit from the internet and contain the digital divide is still very relevant. The sacrifice has been great, but the rewards and benefits for generations of people in developing world who would otherwise have missed the opportunity have been limitless. I'm really excited about how actions in technology can triumph monumental policy and regulatory barriers and cause changes of the scale as was in Africa in the 80s and 90s. Governments would do well to reform communications policy regimes more favorable to the internet, and African governments in particular would benefit from investing in basic sciences and engineering education. And of course, using the internet for increased community participation in policy development and also in development planning. I have been blessed to have founded important communities and institutions in the African internet ecosystem. This has been a wonderful experience in the formation of self-organized technical communities in Africa, and it has changed me. I look forward to seeing how today's internet champions will change the world. I thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Diplomats ni Kwainon. Let's come along with our next award winner in the category Pioneer Circle. Set up the first internet exchange point. Please welcome to the stage Glenn Rickards.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored by the award, and I want you to know that half of it is being in the right place at the right time. Let me tell you the story. The time is 1986. I'm at the University of Maryland, College Park. There is a small but growing number of TCP/IP networks, mostly single purpose, mostly unconnected. The example we have of how to connect two TCP/IP networks is a gateway, a computer sitting between the ARPANET and the MILNET. And the discussion is, how should these networks be connected to each other and have the right rules? How can we make sure that all the right packets stay on the right networks and don't get on the wrong networks? It's a very complex situation, and we're not getting very far. So, began to think about an important feature of the internet. Sometimes it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. So a group of us figured this out. I was in a fortunate situation at the University of Maryland College Park to be near a number of the federal networks. And we had also started the first of the NSF regional networks, the first operating network, SuraNet, was connected there at College Park, and I had the first campus that was TCP/IP. So that might be a great place to invite everyone else to connect. So here's the plan. The plan is invite everyone to connect to College Park. From their point of view, simple, nice, simple connection to College Park. Thanks to TCP/IP, that wonderful protocol, they'll be connected to each other. No gateway. That was a significant breakthrough, and we ended up doing that. A number of the federal agencies were among the first to go do that, and that point in College Park became known as the FIX, the Federal Internet Exchange. But we invited anyone and everyone who wanted to connect to that exchange point to do so. So we also had Rick Adams from UUNet. We also had Bill Schrader from PSINet. We had international connections to South America, to Europe. Lots of other folks also connected to College Park, and we welcomed everyone who wished to do so. Milo Medine started a second FIX on the West Coast, so we didn't have a single point of failure for the internet. This is important, don't have a single point of failure. So he established a second FIX at NASA Ames. And from there, the future just was open. It turned out that there was a commercial internet exchange that followed on after that. But the first internet exchange without a gateway in the middle appears to have been in College Park beginning in about 1986. And I was fortunate enough to be at the right place at the right time. I'd like to thank a number of the folks who helped make that possible. Walt Gilbert, Mike Petrie, Louis Mamekos, Jack Hahn, Jack Waters. All of those folks and many more were key to making that happen. And I want to thank them and thank the Internet Society for this honor. Thank you.
Glenn Rickards, ladies and gentlemen, Pioneer Circle Award winner. So let's come along with our next award winner in this category. Here is the information. Leader in the development of modern computing technology and computer networks. Your applause for Robert Taylor. So, as you can see, Robert Taylor could not join us, but he expressed his appreciation for this award. He wanted to add that in computer research, significant achievements are accomplished by teams of people, not just one. And he referenced the many collaborative experience he had over the years. So, for example, the Alto system at the Computer Science Lab at Xerox PARC, which enabled the first internet in 1976, was designed and built from the contributions of more than 24 researchers. He credits many of the fellow researchers throughout his career as contributors and encouraged a new awards tradition to recognize extraordinary group accomplishments. In addition to PARC's Computer Science Lab and DEC Systems Research Center, he offered a few more examples from the past. The Disney's Animation Group, Lockheed's Skunk Works, and the Manhattan Projects as others. He closed with a Japanese proverb, "None of us are as smart as all of us." Congratulations, Robert Taylor. So we have two more awards to hand over. Developed first open computer network in the US to support research and higher education. Please welcome Stephen Wolf.
A good many years ago, I was employed in a research lab as an engineer. I had a colleague who was a plasma physicist. We worked on the same projects together. At one point, in contravention of a great many regulations, we managed together to buy a computer out of project funds. After a good bit of time, we put Unix on it and got that to work, and we discovered UUCP. A little bit later, we discovered the ARPANET, and we could both instantly see the boon that networking would have for scientific research. The ability to do asynchronous collaboration by email, to share files, to share computer resources. And we talked about that a lot. But my colleague had a different idea. He thought that everybody should have access to the network. He saw it as a way to distribute knowledge, as a way to encourage literacy and distribute information, as a way to elevate the human spirit. And we talked about that a lot too. But he did more than that. He believed in that vision. He resigned his post, cashed in his retirement, borrowed money from friends and family, and set up an internet business. Business was designed to relieve the populace of the tedium of grocery shopping. The idea was either by Telnet or FTP, you would get him a shopping list, and he would go out and buy the groceries and have them delivered to your front door. Of course, internet penetration in those days was in the sub-% level, and what there was 300 baud dial-up. Unsurprisingly, the business faltered and failed. My friend at this point, deeply in debt, dispirited but not disillusioned, and in poverty, tried to re-enter the workforce without great success. And a few years later, he died. I am deeply honored by this award. I wish to dedicate my membership to my colleague and visionary friend, Dr. Bruce Henriksen of the U.S. Army Ballistic Research Lab, Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Stephen Wolf, Pioneer Circle Award winner. Thank you very much. course, last but not least, led the team that created the infrastructure to connect Germany to the internet. Please welcome Bernhard Zorn.
One can hardly imagine the feeling I had when the email came in end of April, Internet Hall of Fame, congratulations. And reaching somebody who is 5 years retired, nearly forgotten, with project work 30 years ago. In the profile I read that I was entitled partisan. And I really admit I became partisan when shortly after the first email came in, exactly on the today's date, August 3rd, 1984, because of fact that the prolongation of our project was denied, because universities were looked at to be not the right place to deliver network services or provide network services. But in reality, I think they foresee that I would very soon organize an opposition against their strict Audi policy, what actually happened. So from a partisan 30 years ago to an inductee in the Internet Hall of Fame. What a change. For me, it is a fairy tale, quite similar to that of the ugly duckling, perhaps you know. And from the ugly duckling, we can learn if you are in such a miserable situation, what to do. But it's a little ugly duckling. It went into the world and looked for birds of the same feather. And I found my first buffs in Larry's Landweber's workshop, as a few of here, you as well, and later in the Internet Society. Without their help, I would not stand here. So it was, for example, Dave Farber software we used. It was Stephen Wolf who gave the okay to our China connection, and it was Stephen Goldstein to agreed or gave okay to the connection to the NSFNet. So I want to thank you all, and including my former staff who might watch this ceremony today or even later. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Bernhard Zorn, our last inductee. And I would like to invite you to give me once again a warm applause to all our inductees in all the 3 categories for tonight. Thank you very much to this. So we are very close to finish this beautiful award ceremony evening, but before that happens, I'll now ask Lynn St. Amour back on the stage to share several important announcements. Lynn?
Thank you. Those were just wonderful, inspiring, emotional. It's a great look back at history and also a look forward to a lot of challenges. If anybody is up to these challenges, though, this room and our networks are. And, you know, in the Internet Society, we always say that we have to keep looking forward. We need to rely on communities. The Internet, as has been said earlier tonight as well, its future is not sure. Frankly, at some points in the past few months, its future's looked quite dark, frankly. So we need everybody's help and effort and enthusiasm. And obviously with the common theme running through these speeches about collaboration and community and recognizing contributions of others, the humbleness, it's just, you know, frankly, very emotional. So the internet was built on ideals and principles and values, and it's so obvious that those are still present today in so many of the people here, and everyone here, I would guess. And I just want to recognize that this is a really important piece of recognition for the history, not only those that get recognition every day, but for a lot of those people that don't get the same level of recognition. This is only possible through your contributions, through your suggestions, through your nominations. We really want everybody to think about it, to reach out to your networks. The nominations period will be opening up again in October for next year's ceremony, so we really hope that we get an even better and a bumper crop of candidates for next year. It also falls to me to announce the plans for our future ceremonies. We have agreed a rotational schedule, a global schedule. Next year we'll be meeting in Asia Pacific. The year after that, in 2015, we'll be in Latin America, 2016 Africa, and in North America in 2017. The exact dates and locations will be published in due time. You can certainly check those on the Internet Society website and the Internet Hall of Fame website. And maybe just in closing, it's impossible to recount fully the contributions of the people that we've actually recognized here today. They certainly weren't captured in, Twitter level captions here on the screen. So please go and visit the Hall of Fame website. You'll find videos, you'll find fuller bios, you'll find contributions. It really is important that we just carry on kind of the appreciation of the individuals, and that we pay attention to the values that people brought to the development of the internet, and that is so very, very present here today. With that, I think I'm just meant to turn it back over and just ask everybody again to give the 2013 inductees a big round of applause.
Lynn St. Amour. So, thank you very much. This concludes our Internet Hall of Fame ceremony for 2013. As you heard it, you're going to see each other again in 2014 when the ceremony will be held in Asia Pacific. So, my name is Amius, and I would like to say goodbye now in German. So, meine Damen und Herren, ich hoffe, es hat Ihnen allen Spaß gemacht. Ich hoffe doch, Sie haben heute Abend noch einen schönen Abend. Genießen Sie ihn, und dann sehen wir uns auf jeden Fall im nächsten Jahr wieder. And I think you didn't understand anything. Okay, thank you very much. So once again, and please make sure that we have now a photo opportunity. So I would like to invite all you inductees, please, on the stage for a last photo memory of this 2013. Please come up to the stage now.